So everybody, I am Danielle Garber from Be More You, Branding and Marketing, and today I am doing the first interview in my series of Behind the Brand interviews with the lovely Janet Camela. Janet is the founder of Rebalance Massage. She is a massage therapist. She also has qualifications in scar works, which is a scar therapy technique which she can use with her clients, and she is also a reflexologist. So I'm going to talk to Janet today about the story behind her business. So behind the brand, we're going to go under the bonnet of the brand and find out why Janet started her business, and dive into some of her journey that took her into massage in the first place, and the reflexology and the work that she's now doing with her clients with women's health with reflexology. And also she has a passion for low-tox living, and we're going to have a bit of a conversation around that and the beautiful organic soaps that she makes, because I just think that there's a lot in Janet's story that will help people who are either struggling with their health or struggling to find an alternative solution where other things have maybe not worked, or if they just want to enhance their level of energy and wellness, then massage and reflexology is a great way to do that. So welcome, Janet. I'm so glad that you agreed to do this, because whenever I speak to my clients and I get the stories behind their businesses, like they're always so individual, so unique, and so beautiful. And I want to share those, because I know I'm always really blown away by how incredible my clients are and the things that they're doing in the world. So I'm really glad that you came on today to talk about your business.
Thank you very much.
I know that you don't love being in front of the camera, so I really appreciate it.
I don't feel very comfortable, but it's okay. I'm out of my comfort zone here.
So, okay. As anyone can hear, Janet is Italian, and you currently work in London. So Rebalance Massage is based in London, and you offer massage therapy, remedial massage in the centre of London. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, I do mobile massage in central London, and then I have a therapy room in two locations, one in Maswell Hill and one in Palmer's Green.
Perfect.
Yeah, most of my clients are mobile, but it's also nice to have a therapy room where to welcome people to, because not always your home space is a relaxing space.
No, I can imagine if you've got kids, home is maybe not the most relaxing time, especially at sort of 7 o'clock in the evening when it's all just going wild. So when we first spoke about your business, for those that don't know, I created the rebrand for Janet. When was that? In 2020, 2021?
2021.
2021.
November, end of 2021, yeah.
We did the rebrand and we created a beautiful website for Janet, because you just really wanted to elevate your visibility within the London area. So we did that, and we've just added to that website now that you are offering reflexology. Mm-hmm. I really like to get into the detail, so that when I design brands, they are very unique to the person whose brand it is. And when we spoke and I asked you why you started offering, like what took you into massage, you just told me the most beautiful story. So if you want to tell everyone a little bit about your background before you started Rebalance, that I think would be a really lovely place to start.
Yes, I before qualifying as a massage therapist, I worked for a few months as a carer. And I was looking after young girl. She was 22 years old, and she had what they used to call shutdowns. That I don't know, in medical, it's something really hard to define, because the reason behind it was unknown. So they didn't know if it was physiological or psychological. She used to basically walk, talk like all normal people, and then she would have these shutdowns where she would fall and be like, she was there with her mind, but she couldn't talk or interact with other people. She couldn't eat and swallow properly, so we couldn't feed her or give her water. And this could go on from 20 minutes to up to 5 hours.
Wow.
You can imagine that I didn't know what to do. And I started after a month to give her massage, asking her for permission. She couldn't say yes or no, but she could do like little smiles. So I started to give her hand and feet massage. And I noticed that she was coming out of her shutdowns more quickly, and also that she was like reacting with facial expressions more instead of being like blank. And so yeah, that's where I started, and I thought, oh, this is really nice. I think she's feeling some benefit. And then I decided to train as a massage therapist, because it's there where I find out that touch was really important. Because if I weren't, if I didn't decide to touch her, what would we do? We couldn't read, watch TV, we couldn't interact with each other. That was the only way we could exchange something.
Mm. I think it was really poignant for me as well, because obviously in 2021 we were, still very much in the throes of the pandemic, and I mean, I think as a culture, certainly in the UK, we don't, we're not a culture of huggers. People in the UK, maybe it's different in Italy, because I feel like the Italians are much better at demonstrating their emotions. In the UK, we are a country of stiff upper lip, stoic, don't show your emotions. And I mean, I grew up in a family where we're just not really huggers. And yeah, I think like we're just, certainly in 2021, it was so obvious how much people were craving that connection. You couldn't shake somebody's hand, and that really awkward strangeness of like when you'd see a friend and have that like, are we hugging? Are we not? Can I hug you? And it's weird, and I saw a client yesterday who I worked with in probably around the same time, actually, maybe a bit before. And again, and even yesterday, she was there and she's like, can I hug you? And we forget how important that connection is with people. If you don't have that basic touch, it can have that huge physiological impact on people. So yeah, I think there was very often, I mean, I've had massage in the past. We had conversations about some of the massage that I had in the past, because for years I've had lower back issues. And so I've had all sorts of, osteopathy and sports massage and lots of different types of massage. And some of them, at the end of them, I felt like I'd been beaten up, and I looked like I'd been beaten up. It was so physically painful. And I remember when we were talking, and we were talking about, getting the elbows in, and you said to me, you were like, I don't really do that. You don't have to do that. And I think we came up with the tagline, like, massage doesn't have to hurt to heal.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I strongly believe that. And there is still this idea that if a massage doesn't leave you with pain or marks on your skin, it hasn't been strong enough and it didn't work for you. Where I think, first of all, pressure is really subjective to every person, because we all have a different nervous system. We wire differently, and some people may find it really threatening to have a strong pressure, and then there are so many factors that comes into play, physiological and psychological as well, that I don't, it's very subjective to every person, and I don't think it's necessary for massage to work to be hard. And funny enough, I had 2 months ago trauma body work modality for my low back pain. The lady, she hardly touched me. It was very light touch like this, and my pain went away, and I was like, wow, this is even
That's
lighter than what I
amazing.
do.
Yeah. It's funny because with my, I mean, I've tried everything with my back, like absolutely everything. And so I'd been to all of these really heavy duty massage therapists, and they'd move me around, and physios, and they were all kind of saying different things, but they would do the massage, and I was having acupuncture, and which wasn't ideal because I have a needle phobia. So but I thought I was desperate. I thought I'll give it a go. But what I was finding was that anything that was being done with force, even if it was working in the moment, so they were sort of seeing, oh, actually, yeah, the muscles they're relaxing. The trauma that it was inflicting on my body, the second they stopped, the second I walked out of the door, it was like my body would seize up again instantly. And the only difference that I found was I actually went to my mother-in-law, who's a Reiki practitioner, and she does very light touch Swedish massage. And I went to her, and she did this. It was like a very light massage with Reiki and then crystal therapy. And oh my goodness, the difference was incredible. And I
I
mean, I
think
can,
that's, what's important there, the intention.
yeah. And I mean, I know,
Sometimes the intention is more important. I know it sounds a bit of a quackery to say the intention matters more than technique, but I think very often what is overlooked in pain is first the inflammation of the body, so the nutritional aspect, lifestyle, level of stress, and movement. Movement is the number one medicine that is often overlooked. So a passive treatment like massage, it has to go together with movement. And then the intention of the therapist, if you do 10 massages in a day, you can't keep the same level of energy as a therapist and the same intention to every person you touch. And when there is no intention and purpose, I think is going to be less effective.
Yeah, and I've certainly experienced that. I mean, I've had massages where I've gone to, like, the local sort of spa or beauty parlor, and the person giving the massage is, they've ticked the boxes that they need, in, they've manipulated the right areas of the body, shall we say, but you come out and you just feel completely flat, because for them it's just another treatment. So they might be doing a facial, then they're doing a massage, and for them it's all the same thing. And I can speak with authority because I've actually come and had one of your massages, and it's so very different. There, you have such an intention behind the work that you do. You genuinely care that that person gets some benefit from from the massage, that, or the treatment that they get from you. And I think that makes such a huge difference. And also that collaboration that you have with people. So I know previously you were working with Urban Massage. Is it Urban Massage in London?
Yeah.
And I know this because we've spoken about it, and I have a friend who's in London who uses Urban Massage, and he'll say they're great, but you don't know who's coming through the door. You can't just choose your massage therapist. You just say, I want a massage at this time, and somebody turns up. Whereas I know that you like to work with your clients on a much longer term basis, so that you can help them with the advice around
I think it's good to have
movement.
that consistency where you know as a client what to expect, whether with urban massage. apart from the social aspect, I think urban massage is part of this disposable culture. It's like Deliveroo. You so detached as everything happens through the computer, through the app. You very detached from the person who's cooking your food. It's not like you're in a restaurant. You have a kind of relationship with the waiter, and sometimes there is an open kitchen. You can see who's cooking for you, and there is a connection between what you're eating and a person who cared and prepared that for you.
Yeah.
Urban massage, you would think, well, there is touch, this person is touching me. But the process through which people book a therapist, it makes it very mechanical.
Mm.
And when you go there, it's like, I feel that many people expect just to, like, as if a robot is massaging them, not a human being.
Yeah.
And it creates a distance between people, whether I think it's good to be there with the person, have that consistency. You know who's coming, you know what to expect from a massage. You can ask, you've got that relationship where you can ask, Janet, actually, I don't like this. I would prefer you do that. I had this done one day from a therapist. I had massage like that. I would like you to do that. And it's much more personal, and over the time I understand the person. I know what's the right pressure for them, what they like, and it makes it a totally different experience.
Yeah, that's such a lovely analogy. I'd never really thought about it like that, because it is, this culture that we're in, it's so transactional. And like you
Yeah.
say, everything's becoming automated, and there are benefits with that. And you've now got an automated system because it makes it easy for your clients to book in with you to get their slots and all of that. But yeah, you're so right. And it's funny because we've just found a new restaurant in Southampton, and it's a young Chinese couple who've opened this restaurant, and they are adorable. Like we absolutely have fallen in love with them. And the restaurant itself, it's the most basic. To say it's basic is like really kind of like, bigging it up, because it's so, I can't even describe it. It's like an old school hall. It's tiny, but it's not flashy in any way, shape, or form. And like some of the other restaurants that we eat in, they're so nice. So when you contrast the two, you would think, oh my god, you guys are going there for dinner. But actually the experience of going there, and now we know the couple a bit, and the wife will always come out and speak to us when we go in. The husband is the chef, and he'll always come out in the middle of service and just kind of have a chat with us and tell us how they're doing. And that elevates the experience. And it's really funny, because I wonder if we'd ordered takeaway from them and we'd never met them, how good the food would taste in comparison. Because for me, it's like Michelin starred. It's such an experience to go. It's so, it's hilarious.
The care element that makes everything different.
Yeah. And also, it really matters to me, because restaurants, it's such a hard business to be in, and so many have come and gone. And if you're working, I've worked in catering, like my mum had her own catering business, so I know how hard that industry is. So we really want to support them, and I think it's the same with smaller businesses and businesses like yours. You could go to, some of the bigger businesses, but you won't get the same level of care that you get when you're working with somebody who puts their heart and soul into it. And yeah, I think
something like urban, there is never a proper follow-up. So you do a treatment on a person, you don't know if it worked, if it didn't work, you don't know how next time you can adjust. You don't even know if you'll see this person next time. Maybe they won't find you on the time they want, maybe you won't see them again. So from the therapist side also, there is no point in caring too much. It's it's
yeah.
not how a job like this should be, I think.
Yeah.
And food is the same. The food industry, I've worked as a waitress and manager in restaurants for 6 years, before qualifying as a massage therapist. And it's all about caring. It's all about remembering your name, what you like, what you don't like. When you go to a coffee shop and they tell me, for example, that single espresso, because they know this is the only thing I get,
Yeah.
it's another experience.
Yeah. It's so funny. I mean, I worked in restaurants when I was younger, and it's funny, like even now, I mean, the restaurant that I worked in, it we were like family. So the girls that I worked with, they've become some of my best friends, and they've been best friends of mine now for like 20 years. And when you see somebody else that used to work there, you're instantly taken back, like the connections that we built, and even the people that we used to serve 20 years later, they remember us, we remember them, because you remember what drink they ordered, but you forget sometimes, like, a lot of people were working away from home, or they just moved to Southampton, and they come there and you're the only friends they've got, or they may be working in a new place, or maybe they're just there for a couple of weeks or something, but you're there and you're chatting to them, and that's the connection that they needed at that time, because maybe they didn't have that anywhere else, and you forget how important that is. Like, I drive Simon mad because I talk to everybody on dog walks. And sometimes you'll come across somebody and they will talk and they'll keep talking and they keep talking, and Simon's like so impatient, and he's just like, come on, we need to go. And I'm just always like, when he eventually manages to drag me away, I'm like, you have no idea whether that person has any other interaction. I was like, that might be the only interaction that they have with anybody all week. I said, so if they want to talk, I'm going to listen. I'm going to talk to them. Why not? It costs nothing. Anyway, but I digress. I'd love to hear more about, so initially you were introduced to me by Emma Holly, who is a scar therapy expert trainer in the UK, and you had just done your Scar Works training with her. I would love to know more, because actually we didn't get into this at the start when we did your brand, but when we redid your website this time, I sort of started to learn a little bit more about why you got into scar therapy in the first place. So I think that would be really interesting to hear, because most people have never heard of scar therapy. I'm definitely going to try and get Emma on to talk about it, but I'd love to know how, as a massage therapist, you came to know about scar therapy, and why you wanted to then be able to offer that to your clients.
So my journey with scar therapy started because I had a surgery in 2019 for an herniated disc. So I could barely walk. It was painful. I couldn't work, of course, because my job is a physical job. So, and then at the end, I opted for the surgery, which I don't know if it was a good idea. But anyway, after the surgery, I kept having pain. And in my mind, I was like, God, probably there is another disc herniation. Maybe I need to have a revision surgery. Didn't know what was happening. I went to see different physiotherapists, osteopath, exercise, hard massage, crack. And then I met my osteopath. She's going to be my osteopath forever because she saved me. And that was after 2 years of pain. Mind you, the scar is tiny. It's like this. It's like, and we were working in the same place. And she said, I need a massage because my shoulders are really stiff. Let's do a swap. When I got undressed, she said to me, you got back pain? Yeah. I said, yeah, I've been having back pain for 2 years after this surgery. It's not as bad as before the surgery, but still have pain. She said, no, but your problem is the scar. And she started treating my scar. And that day, the relief I had, I can't describe it. And I was like, what have you done? Well, I've worked on the fascia, work on the scar, it's all fascial technique. And she said to me, even I'm an osteopath, and people come to expect to come here and have manipulation and cracking, because people always say I need to be cracked. 80% of my work is fascial work, only fascial technique. I hardly do any manipulation and stuff like that. And that night, I remember I could sleep 8 hours straight with no, I was always uncomfortable in bed, and it was amazing. And I thought, no, if there is a way to train in this and change
Wow.
people, maybe people are around and they've got a small scar like this with pain and stiffness, and they don't know that the problem is the scar. I need people to know about this. So that's why I train in scar therapy,
That's
and I
incredible.
love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because the reason that I do what I do, and there'll be another whole nother episode on my story, so I won't go into it in too much detail, but when I started discovering complementary medicine and so many different modalities of really kind of like diving into the health and wellness world, I was just like, oh my God, like it was like this eyes open. And then you open this Pandora's box, and then you can't ever, you can't unsee what you've seen. And I was like, people need to know about this. Like you say, people walk around for years with pain, and they don't know how easy sometimes the solution can be. And I don't want to minimize pain, because I've had back pain, and I know people with chronic pain, and it sometimes it's not that easy a solution. But with something like scar therapy, I'm always amazed at the results that you can get, because it's so light touch. Like,
Yeah, I mean, when I went for this session with my osteopath, I was like, God, what's she doing? I mean, if I had paid, I would think I've wasted my money. I've thrown 75 quid out of the window for a lady doing this to me. But
yeah,
then, I
I
mean,
think for anyone that's listening to the audio, the best way that I can describe scar therapy from what I've seen, so from the videos I've seen, if you imagine a cat and the way that cats
yeah,
paw at, when they pad their paws on something, like that's what it looks like, this really almost like gentle padding, as opposed to like a strong massage. And I know that there are different techniques, so I don't want to completely oversimplify what you do, but for anyone that's never seen scar therapy or doesn't understand like what those kind of techniques look like, it's very gentle, isn't it?
very gentle. And when I go to Italy now, because in Italy there is still the old school approach to scars. I remember when my mom had the surgery on her arm, the thing they did to her scar, it was brutal. Just pulling, put it in very hot
Oh
water and then
gosh.
in cold water and then pull it again. And she was coming home like she was traumatized.
Yeah.
And the scar is still really, because she has got a plate under, still doesn't look nice, is really stuck. And then I started to do scar massage to her, like after qualifying. And now is a very nice, supple. The color is going from red to white slowly, and there was no pain. There was no. When I go to Italy, I've got friends with scar, and is the therapy I do the most in Italy, because there is nothing like that. I mean, there is, but it's very rare.
Wow.
So I think these techniques are really, they're a revolution.
Yeah, it's so funny, because it feels like every step that you are taking with your business is like taking something that's normally really, really painful and then finding a really gentle solution that
Mm,
actually works even better.
yeah.
So I don't know what you want to talk about first, because I feel like they are linked, and maybe it will just come out in the conversation. But so you have a passion for low tox living, and you also run a sister business, Anemone Soaps, where you create these
Yeah.
beautiful organic essential oils, all natural soap products, and you have also started offering reflexology. So you're now a qualified reflexologist, and you specialize in reflexology for women's health, predominantly helping people who are struggling with hormonal imbalances. So, and I feel like the two are really linked. So maybe let's talk about the reflexology, and then we can get into the low-tox living and how that complements your reflexology.
Yeah, both things are really linked to my long life struggle with period pain. Um, I've always had from my first period a lot of pain that didn't get better with over-the-counter anti-inflammatories. And the solution they always offer to you, why don't you take the pill? I did try for 3 months, but it didn't work for me. I was really depressed, really bad mood. I was crying all the time for no reason. I was like, is it worth it? I mean, what am I doing? I'll keep the pain and take the strong painkillers my doctor was giving me, prescribing me in Italy. And but then I thought, this can't be right. I mean, why my friend can do sport and be happy while on her period, why I need to call my clients and cancel appointment because I cannot get out of bed. I'm crying because of the pain. I need to take too many pills. That doesn't, something is off. Then, well, that's another story. I find out I did find out that most of my pain was caused by the fact that I'm celiac, and I didn't know. So
Okay.
cutting out gluten really changed. 80% of my pain is gone. And then for the residual pain, I did have reflexology sessions, and it was like a blessing. I mean, I don't take painkillers anymore now. Because if you think it adds up to take 2, 3, 4 painkillers a month for your gut health, it's not great.
Yeah.
So reflexology really worked, and then I got into all the research about environmental toxins. That's my own research, and how everything impacts our hormonal system. And I started to get rid of all the toxins in my beauty routine. I never had a really complicated beauty routine anyway, but everything. And soap is part of it, because whatever we put in on our skin, it's so important. And I did a course to make soap. I love it. It makes my skin, and I think everyone's skin, much better. It doesn't get dry. You don't have to get, a moisturizer every time after the shower. And I think it's great. It's a game changer.
It's funny because in our household now, I feel like you've changed the trajectory of our household, because we always had hand soap and or like the squeezy liquid soap, and you sent the beautiful soaps over to me. So one of them went into the shower, and I ran out of the liquid soap, so one went next to the sink so we could wash our hands, and we haven't gone back. We've not gone back to liquid soap. I'm like, oh, actually no, these are really beautiful. I really like the almost like the tactileness of the soaps, because you use the the natural exfoliators, don't you?
I've got one with poppy seeds that is exfoliating. I've just done one with salt that is really a strong skin softener. And I think there is this idea that soap bars are not really hygienic. That's why we all were using liquid. You do like that, you don't have to touch anything. And doesn't soap is the best thing. If you think our grandmas, they used to do everything with soap, even the hair.
Yeah.
It's like, what do we need anything else for? I think.
Yeah, and there's no plastic waste.
No.
There's no bottle to throw away at the end of the soap bar. I mean, I'm old school, so at the end of the soap bar, it gets kind of like squished onto the new onto the new soap bar. So which is such a shame because your soaps are a work of art. I mean, you can see they're on your website. So for anyone listening, you can go to rebalancemassage.co.uk and you can actually, there's the link there to your Etsy shop so they can see, but oh my word, they are beautiful. And I just love the,
I'm glad you like it.
but let's
Yeah,
go back
we
to
don't hear.
reflexology
Yeah,
because it's funny because when I had my massage with you, I was so excited because I was in London. I was at a conference. So I was at a 3-day conference in London. So I knew that I was going to be sat down all day the next day. And which is never good for my back. I mean, movement has been one of the best things, and just walking more has been incredible for solving my back issues along with regular massage. But I booked the 120-minute, so 2-hour massage session, which I'm so glad I did, because for anyone listening, if you're in London, you have to go and see Janet, because you'd said to me with the different massage treatments that you do, that if you have if you have enough time, you do the hand massage at the end, you do the Indian head massage, which was just divine, and then the foot massage. And I'm a bit funny with my feet, but I remember when you were doing my feet, you started to do some sneaky reflexology. Tiniest, tiniest level of pressure that you put on the inside of one of my toes, and I almost went through the roof. Because obviously you were saying that's the bit that's linked to lower back pain, and it was, yeah, I mean, it's just incredible. So I'd love to learn a bit more about the reflexology that you do, and obviously you found it hugely beneficial with dealing with managing chronic period pain. But I know that you're going to be working with menopausal women, perimenopausal women,
yeah,
people who are suffering with back pain, women who are pregnant. So yeah, I'd love to just know a bit more, because I don't know very much about reflexology, not
yeah.
liking
There
having my feet
are
touched.
so many things that reflexology can address. And to be honest, when I started the course, I thought it's nice to include a foot massage, a nice foot massage at the end of every treatment. But then as I was going along, the course was 14 months long, and I was treating people. I mean, I saw results I didn't expect on low back pain, on digestive issues, on anxiety, and some people are really reactive. So if I touch the reflex that corresponds to the gallbladder, they feel it straight away in the gallbladder, and they say, "Are you touching this?" And I'm like, "Wow, this is so powerful." And yeah, I think it's the most powerful therapy I've tried, to be honest. I mean, even scar work is, if you have a scar, but you would never think that touching feet and the mapping on your feet that corresponds to every single organs and parts of your body, you will make such a change in a distal part of the body by touching the feet. It was a surprise for me as well. And yeah, and there was this protocol in 1994, carried out here in London by a gynecologist, and Tony Porter. There is one of the most famous reflexologists. They did a trial on period pain, and the reflexology protocol of Tony Porter was really effective on women with period pain, and they stopped the trial for that reason, because I mean, what do you want the doctor to write a paper saying the reflexology is more powerful than the surgery was performed? It was uterosacral nerve ablation, so it was cutting nerve to stop the pain, and it can do so much for anything related to your health, but also anything related to the hormonal system and your hormonal balance.
It's incredible.
Very important for anything that is hormonal related is nutrition, environmental toxin. I mean, nutrition is not something, it's something I read about a lot, but it's not, I can't qualify in everything. I can't be also
Can't save the world.
No, I can't save the world. But nutrition, environmental toxin, and reflexology are the three things I would go, if I could go back 24 years to my first period, that's where I would start.
Things. That's so interesting. Don't worry, don't panic. I've got a wonderful nutritionist client who I'm going to interview. So I will ask her, because she's amazing. So I think it's,
you need to connect us so we can recommend.
I mean, I think one of the things that I really only started to learn about probably 10 years ago was this idea of integrative health and holistic health. And, I think, and I don't want to bash the NHS, because they do an incredible job with acute conditions. So with, and the level of care that we get in this country, even when it's not perfect, if you compare that to a lot of other places, what the NHS is able to do is quite miraculous. What I will say is that the NHS, traditionally, the way that medicine works in the UK, it doesn't take an integrative approach. So it looks at things in a very different way. So if you were presenting with back pain, for instance, and you also had IBS, the two wouldn't necessarily they wouldn't look at the two together and think, is there something else going on here? Could it be something else? And I know, I've had experiences where actually pain that has been experienced was actually nothing physical. I've experienced where the pain has just vanished overnight after a therapy session, and that's insane to think that actually an emotional or, psychological element can affect another part of your health in such a huge way. And I've like diving into nutrition, learning how to eat well, learning how to nourish my body has been such a journey for me. And I think for anybody that starts down this path, it's you start sort of pulling on this thread, and then you find all these other things that come out, and when you pull them all together, they all complement each other in such a wonderful way. And the results that you can get when you start layering the environmental change, the lifestyle change, with then the therapy is quite considerable.
I think what happens today, especially with the massive use of social media, that to stand out you need to be controversial. So you see on social media people saying only this type of massage will work, this is wrong, and the same with nutrition, this is the only approach that will make you lose weight and feel better, blah 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 blah. But part of our journey to health is to be more in tune with our body and understand what is wrong and what is good for us, because we feel it. No one else can tell us what is wrong and what is good. I mean, I can't tell a person this pressure is the right pressure you need to get rid of this. It's their body telling them, and they tell me. And it's the same with nutrition and everything. Everything, integrative health, like you say, everything has to go together. And we also need to be in tune with our body to understand where to go, what is right. And I think is a big problem with for GPs and doctors in general, because people are more aware and they come and they say, I don't feel this is right for me. It's like going to my gynecologist saying, I don't feel the pill is right for me because it gives me low mood. And he says, well, we'll try another pill. I say, well, no, I don't want to take any pill because I'm not in a long-term relationship. There is no risk of pregnancy. The pain, I mean, do I need to be depressed the whole month to avoid the pain for 2 days or 3 days? No.
Mm. Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Any health journey is going to be unique because as individuals, we're all completely different. So, you know, the nutrition that my nutritionist client would recommend for me would be completely wrong for you because you're celiac, you know, and equally what she recommends for you might be completely inappropriate for me because actually maybe my body works better with, you know, with a certain level of carbohydrate that maybe you couldn't eat. So I think with all of this, you have to, you know, that anybody that tells you that there is only one route to health or there is only one modality that works is I would take with a pinch of salt. I would say that I know you're so good with your like with your qualifications and with your ongoing training. Everything that you do is evidence based. So you know, you will not say something or put something on your website unless it's evidence based, unless you can track it back to the research that has been carried out by a reputable you know, practitioner or doctor or, you know, research organization. So I think it's really important for people to try different things, understand that, you know, evidence based means that there is credibility to the thing that they're trying. It does not necessarily mean, you know, and even like science backed, evidence based, doctor recommended. Yes, it means that it's a credible option. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the only one. But it's a very good place to start because if you are using evidence-based, science-backed information, it's generally you're going to be a lot safer than if you're trying something that is completely untested. I mean, that just for me is like the easiest way to look at things. But it's really important to remember that we are all complete individuals.
And is a lot of trial and error, consistency once you start something because you need to see where it will take you. But that's true with even with allopathic medicine. Sometimes you don't see the results overnight. And then I think health medicine is a form of art. It's not, there is the science part, and then there is the part where you connect, you as a therapist, as a doctor, you connect the dots based on your knowledge, on your listening skills, on so many other things and science, and then you put it together and in a creative way you try to find the best solution for the person. And I think this is true of medicine, of a therapy like what I do, of nutrition, of movement, of everything. We can't just say, you know, this is right and this applies to everyone. And every person is unique, every journey is unique. And I would encourage everyone to try as many things as they can and see what works for them. No one can come and tell you this is the right thing and all the rest, leave it.
So with reflexology, how long was it before you started to see results?
For me, it was after the first session.
Which is incredible.
For me, but for another person can take 2-3 months.
And would that be weekly? So how often would you have, let's get into like, how often would you have reflexology?
It depends how chronic the condition is and how long you've experienced a certain symptom. I would say for the first 3 months, one session a week or twice a month at least to see a difference.
So, and with massage, I think, is it every 2 weeks you recommend somebody has a massage?
Yeah, I think every 2 weeks is especially if you're very active, or even if you're not active. I mean, people with most pain are the ones sitting at a desk or doing a repetitive job. So actually movement and activity, I think it can makes you feel less pain and be more supple and but you need it for recovery. In case you're active, you need massage for recovery, for a faster recovery and a better recovery. And yeah, every 2 weeks is the best option, because you got the blood circulation moving, your lymph moving, and your pain goes, in case is created by muscle tension. And then pain is a very complex subject, so many things comes into the picture.
Maybe we'll go on and we'll do another one about pain on another day. And then scar therapy is completely different, because scar therapy isn't an ongoing therapy, is it?
Scar therapy, you need at least 6-7 sessions to start with. You can see the benefit straight away. It doesn't, but it's keep the tissue in an optimal state and take it to its 80% of functionality, because it's never going to be 100% again as it was before the scar. You need an initial 6-7 session, I would say, and then it depends how you feel after. You might need once a month, or the next time I see you is in 6 months' time, because you haven't had any problems since.
Yeah, which is incredible. And I think with scar therapy, once you see benefits, those benefits then are fairly permanent, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
And I've seen videos and before and after photos of like really angry, deep scars that people have had, like especially C-section scars, that look really sort of like very indented, very or very inflamed, and you can see like they look very uncomfortable. And then, you know, the color of them can change, the texture of them can change, and those changes are permanent, aren't they?
Yeah. The other, I do have a client now. She had a C-section, and she was really worried about I think you call it pouch, when the skin goes like that.
Yeah.
She's young, fit, and she was really worried about this. She went to the GP, and the GP said, well, this is what happened when you become a mother. There is nothing we can do about it. This is how it's going to be. And she was like so sad. She was telling me, my stomach was flat before. I was really fit. I'm into sport now. When I do Pilates, I cannot contract my muscle anymore, blah, blah, blah. And we started scar therapy that went. And it was like, she's so happy. Because we also have this idea that moms, they need to accept the fact that after having a baby, their body is going to be ruined forever, but they don't have to care, because what it matters is only the fact that you have a baby, that you are a mother. It's not like that. I mean, you live in your body. You need to feel comfortable in it. So whatever you can do to make it better, there is this judgment on moms that I really don't like.
Yeah, 100%. And I think people also, they forget that actually how you feel about yourself is so important. And yes, you can, I'm sure if if you're an NLP practitioner, you can say it's all just a thought and you get to choose your thoughts. And yes, that is absolutely true too. However, if your identity before becoming a mum is wrapped around being fit, being healthy, being capable, being strong, or even just being slim and attractive, if that then gets knocked and you have all of the pressures of motherhood put on you as well, it's I think it's really unfair to suggest, oh, you just need to get over it, you just need to think differently. I think you're right. There should be more support for people to feel better about themselves, and sometimes feeling better about yourself is doing something to change the thing that's making you feel bad about yourself. Sometimes it's changing your mindset, but when you have something that is, scar therapy is not an invasive treatment. It's a very gentle treatment. It's not invasive. It has very, very few side effects, if if any ever, you know, so it's generally appropriate for most people. When you have something like that people can come and they can access, and it has such a huge difference on their life, you know, aside from anything, I mean, if you can't contract your muscles, so if your client was saying she couldn't contract her muscles properly for Pilates, that ultimately will end up with a lower back issue. If you cannot engage your core properly, it, you know, it goes way beyond just having a paunch, you know, like not liking the fact that your stomach's not quite so flat anymore. It's way beyond that. I mean, that's one part of it, but ultimately, especially when you start carrying a child around and all the bags and the buggies and the other things that sort of come with kids these days, it causes all these other knock-on problems. So I think that we shouldn't dismiss people's problems or concerns when we think that they are just aesthetic, because I think that most things that are aesthetic go far beyond that. And actually, I think you're so right. If we can support somebody in feeling better about themselves, then that gives them such a solid foundation to kind of, you know, move on from.
Definitely, yeah. What you said is really important. Is the scar therapy is not about the look of the scar. It is also about the look of the scar, because most of the time is going to improve the look of it. But the engagement of the muscle where the scar is formed it needs to be as good as it could be. Otherwise, if you can't engage your core or any other muscle of your body, it's going to have a knock-on effect. You're going to engage other muscles that you are not meant to engage for that kind of movement. And then it's going to have a knock-on effect on the rest of your body. It's going to change your posture. It's going to create tightness where you didn't have tightness before. And in the long term, maybe you won't see it in 1 year, in 2 years, but still after 10 years, you can feel rubbish. Your fitness has decreased. So many things that comes into place. I mean, scar is something that should be offered by NHS for me to every person that's got surgery, even something small like what I had that is ridiculous like that.
Yeah. And I know Emma Holly, who we both know, that's her mission, you know, to make scar therapy mainstream, to educate, and she does a lot of work with NHS trusts, as well as like Macmillan Cancer and lots of other charities and sports organizations. So she's on a one-woman mission to change that, because I agree. I think it's transformational, certainly for the people that I've met who've had that. And I'm going to bring Emma on, because I think that will be a conversation that so many people could benefit from. And I would just like to say to anyone who is listening to this, if you are in London, have a friend who's in London and you want to go and see Janet, you can find all of her details at rebalancemassage.co.uk. Janet, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been amazing. And I've loved having this chat with you, because I just think what you do is incredible. And there's so much information that people don't know about the benefits of reflexology and massage and scar therapy. So thank you for coming on and sharing your passion.
It was a blessing to meet you.
Oh, likewise, I've loved it. So thank you so much, and I will see you all again for another episode of Behind the Brand.